of XXE. So in this video, we'll talk about XXE in open source softwares. And first of all, we talk about the prevention technique, how you can prevent so that your code should not be vulnerable to XXE. What sort of setting you need to disable. I am here going to talk about specifically about Java in Java world, but yeah, I believe the same sort of setting you can find in other libraries as well. Also in the description you'll find a link of OWASP prevention sheet, so there you can go and check how to disable the settings for the various different libraries. Okay, so oh, wait a second. Not on top. Okay, so first of all, OWASP put this XXE in the at fifth place. So every year they come up with the top 10 security issues, and this year XXE is at fifth place, but it's under the security misconfiguration. So my question would be why we call it a security misconfiguration. So first of all, if you carefully look at it, so there are XML libraries. Let's say if I am building some code, I'll be using those XML libraries, and there is issue with the external, but that's not the issue actually. Basically, that's the feature provided by that specific library. So it's more like we need to understand that library more as a developer. It's our job to understand what the library provides and then disable those features basically. So, but I can understand that it's not easy to understand the whole library, but that's the thing. Maybe go to their security page, try to understand what. But maybe now the new libraries they have disabled those features, but in the older ones, uh, SEX parts that I am using, you still need to disable it specifically because that's just a library they provide all the features, and you need to disable what you need or what you do not. So doc type declaration is where potentially things where we basically create exploit. If you have seen last video, you must have seen that in doc type declaration we have created all those exploits in which potentially we were exploiting the system. I see if I have any XXE part 2. For example, in this one, we in doc type declaration we have created entity, which is pointing to the etc password file, or in the same site request forgery. Basically, it's a request which we pass on. We create a payload to this backend server, but then we involve some kind of request which basically request not meant for this server but to the internal system which was not accessible to the front end user, but because of this exploit they can do that as well. So whatever those things we were passing through the doc type declaration. So uh, one of the thing is that you just disable the doc type declaration. That's one point. So that's the guideline from the OWASP as well. The safest way to prevent is to disable DTD completely. So this is for the Java, in which they just disallow doc type declaration true. But for other libraries, you need to check what kind of how you disable those features. So this is one of the safest way in which you just disable the doc type declaration. But if you go back, how there are other ways. Let's say if you cannot disable doc type declaration for some reason, I'm not sure which. So what you can do, you can disable external DTD, because external DTD is the way we can make SSSRF. So that is one way. Not one way actually. That is just a partial way. Then you have to also disable general entity and parameterize that entity, because they by using these attacker can access internal files or make SSR. So that's like if you cannot disable doc type. Again, these three lines for a Java specific library, that they have disabled general entities, parameter entities, and the load external DTDs. They have just disabled it. Now I'm going to talk about the open source software that has this vulnerability. Now the first question that you should ask, I mean, lots of in last few years or maybe decade, whenever there are very like vulnerabilities, even here you can see 5 projects. First 4 are from Apache, and the 5th there is Elasticsearch. All of them are open source software. All of them has XXE vulnerability at some point. Like first project Apache Camel has, as you can see, they has 2 in 2015, then 1 in 2017, and then another 2 is 2018, 2019, and then Apache Soul has 2 back to back, and then OpenLNP server has 1, Lucene has 1, Elasticsearch has 1, every now and then you will see XXE vulnerability here and there. The reason being because whenever when it comes to a parse XML library, all of as a developer we think that okay, what if we can use something which is already in there in the market, because there is no way you can create XML parser libraries. I mean you can, but you'll be just wasting your time. Instead of creating a feature that you intend to do, you'll just spend a lot of time in this library, and it has so much going on already. So what they do, they just use them directly. But that's the thing, when we use these libraries and if we do not understand them properly, what can help, that like I said, that if we do not disable those three things, or we do not disable, let's say, doc type declaration, then attacker can create exploit to exploit the vulnerability in the third party library they are using. So the, these are the CVEs that were there, and they all of them due to XXE. And also there are some Java XML libraries that they use, like SAX Reader, XX Builder, Validator, Schema Factory, Oracle DOM Parser. There are lots of in the JavaScript framework, and then there are lots in Java world as well. I'm also going to talk about open source library that they were also using libraries and they had the issue. So there is Apache Tika, Faster XML, Jackson Databine, XML Graphic, SVG. All of them has XXE vulnerability at some point. And if you look at quickly, like in the 2020, they someone has reported there is a vulnerability, and if you go so the critical score for that was 8.2, which is high in my opinion. I guess anything above 5 6 it's high. It's 7.5 is high, but yeah, it's anything above 7.5 is high. So this is high. And also if you look at the GitHub commit, let's take a look at the GitHub commit, that how they have fixed it, because that there was a vulnerability and how they have fixed it. So if you scroll down, you will see that what they have done basically, that they just disable the doc type declaration. That's it. And they also like disable the load external DTT. But that was I feel like that was not necessary. I'm not sure why. Add two more settings just in case. Anyways, that's the one thing that they have done. And if we sorry if we go back to some another, let's say Batik is the open line, and let's see what they okay. So this is the open source library that were using SX libraries. They have disabled all the three that we were talking about. Rather than disabling the doc type declaration, so they have disabled the external general entity, external parameter entity, and the load external DTD feature. They have disabled it. So yeah, so that's what I'm trying to say, that these framework, they use open source, already the libraries that have been written, and in open source libraries. So there are some open source software, and then there are open source library. All of them use some libraries, some open source other libraries. And obviously without understanding fully these libraries, this if we do not disable the features like these, if we do not need it, and if we so an attacker can create some kind of exploit that will potentially exploit all these systems. Also, I'm going next, I'm going to talk about like if I go back, you will see. So like I guess I've talked about the GitHub fix, which is basically a similar, that either you disable the doc type declaration or other three things. uh, how it affect commercially, that's the point. So these are two articles that I have posted here. The one of them article is from the IBM engineering. If I open this link, so is this the right one? No, no, this is not the right one. Let's go back. Let's see if well, yes, there is some issue with the links. What I'm trying to say is that one of these article is from the IBM, and then another article is from the Red Hat, and you can see the number of application affected just with the one bug. So let's say, because like I said, that even these commercial product, they also use these open source libraries, let's say to do something which is already there, like to parse XML or to parse JSON or whatever. So to parse XML, they're using libraries, and then whenever there's some issue comes in those libraries, so they also affect their product. So like in whenever in Jackson data bind fast XML, when there was CVV, it had affected, I guess, more than close to 10 products from Red Hat, and then close to 5 products from IBM. That was also from Jackson data point. So like I said, that so I guess first thing, prevention. How we can prevent it? Just disable the doc type. If can, you can disable three things: parameter entity, external and parameter entity, general entity, and the load external DDDs. Why this issue come? Because uh, we as a developer community, whenever we're building something, we try to use something which is already there in the market, and if there is some issue comes in that market, and it can affect all the products which are using that library. So as you can see in all this open source software, let's say if they're using some library, if there is issue in the library, it will also come in that product. If you look at the GitHub fix, that's what they did. They either they disable the doc type declaration, or they have disabled the three things, which is disable external DDD again, uh, disable general and parameter entity. And if you look at the commercially also, these companies also using this open source libraries. So again, so if there is any issue in there, it will also affect those issues. Thank you for watching, and see you next video.